I dream of you. You want to play again? She smiled and nodded.
Of course!
I let out a small sigh. After the first time I beat her at chess, she proceeded to challenge me to a rematch every time she saw me. She stood with her hands folded behind her back, peering at me with a smirk on her face.
Like I said, I can be pretty persistent.
Are you really that upset that I beat you?
Well, yeah. I admit it, I'm a sore loser.
I never knew. At the very least, I'd never noticed while I was watching from the other side of the mirror. On the contrary, I got the sense that she had the magnanimity to let her opponent win.
That face. I know, right?
She chuckled smugly.
I'm a wolf in cat's clothing.
What does that mean?
It's my version of wolf in sheep's clothing. It means I wear a mask to hide my true colors. Feign innocence, that kind of thing. And you wear a mask too, don't you? Guess that makes us birds of a feather.
For the first time in my life, I smiled. Maybe so. She's playing you. She's playing you!
One by one, I filled out the questions on the form I received at the front desk. At first, the questions were pretty broad, like, what kind of symptoms do you have, and how long have you had them? But on the next page, it started asking more detailed questions about my current condition, and I was meant to circle the answers that applied to me. Then it started asking me about my views and feelings, almost like a personality test, and I was once again reminded of where I was. Will we really find that hunter here?
We will. According to my research, this is the place.
You really do know everything, don't you, Mr. Wizard?
Everything except how you tick.
Why can't you figure me out?
Because I'm not you.
Going by that logic, you'll never be able to understand anyone who isn't you.
Exactly. How can I understand someone else when I don't even understand myself?
Well, you can at least try to imagine it. I mean, most people have a lot in common, emotionally speaking. They enjoy pleasure and hate pain. So, if you use your own experiences as a guideline and only do unto others what you would have done unto you, you can get a feel for people and their hearts.
Merely imagining something doesn't make it real. All living creatures, especially humans, are isolated right from the moment they're born. Nothing you write on some scrap of paper will help anyone see into your heart.
What if you write a calling card? That's what I'm that's what I'm looking for. Hey! He snatched my form and ripped it up. I spent a lot of time on that, you know. If you can't understand anyone but yourself, does that mean I'll never understand the pain and suffering of the man I love?
Normally, yes. But you can understand it, and painfully well, too.
Mr. Wizard, are you?
Miss Arisu, I'm ready to see you now.
He's calling for you.
Right. The hunter was a middle-aged man with glasses and graying hair. As I sat down on the stool, he looked up from the documents on his desk.
Miss Yurika Arisu, what brings you in today?
I wanted to speak to you about something.
What is it?
Just then anxiety spiked in my chest and my heart raced. I barely said a word, but for some reason it felt like he was mad at me, and now I was on the verge of tears. We're having a doubling effect going on, guys. I don't know if you can see what I'm seeing, but I'm seeing double. I'm sorry. I guess I'm a little nervous. The silence terrified me. Desperately, I searched for something to say. I tried to laugh it off, but I wasn't sure if it sounded natural.
What makes you feel nervous?
Well... I wasn't expecting him to ask. Instantly, my mind went blank. I needed to say something. Anything. Now. Now! But the words wouldn't come to mind. His steely gaze made me want to bolt.
According to your paperwork, it says your mind often wanders to the point that you lose track of time. Is that correct?
He noticed me fumbling and changed his question. Yes, I answered in a shaky voice.
How long has this been happening for you?
How long? I don't know. Ever since I can remember, one minute I'm at home, and then I'll find myself outside or talking to someone I don't know.
Do these people seem to know you?
Yes.
I see. Please continue.
In the process of answering his questions, my anxiety must have faded because this time my mind stayed sharp. It's okay. He's a doctor. He's used to this stuff. It's okay if I make mistakes. For some reason, it feels like I'm dreaming. I know I'm awake, but sometimes I have these strangely vivid, lifelike experiences. I know it's not real, but sometimes I feel like crying, or my chest hurts. It feels like I'm reliving my memories, but from the perspective of someone who isn't me. Almost like I'm not really Alice anymore. Interesting.
Do you ever find yourself in a place you don't recognize? Or find yourself injured and don't know how it happened?
Yes.
I see. Let me see your hand.
Okay. I did as requested. He lightly slapped my palm.
Did you feel that? Did it hurt?
Yeah.
Incidentally, how do the people in your life treat you? Has anyone ever told you you're acting like a different person?
Well...
Have you ever felt someone watching you from a dark doorway or somewhere just out of reach? Is there a dark shadow behind you?
How did he know all that? What's happening now? Oh! What's wrong?
Arisu.
You're hurt. We better patch you up.
Arisu. Who am I?
What?
Just now, in the mirror, I saw someone who wasn't me. It was me at first, but the next thing I knew, it turned into someone else. The mirror didn't reflect my face. It was showing someone who looked nothing like me. Then the person looked at me and told me they loved you. And that was when I realized this other person probably wants me to leave. Then after I'm gone, they're going to take over my happy life with you. I'm scared. Really scared. Someone who isn't me lives inside me, using my body, pretending to be me. And when I'm in control, they spy on me from the darkness. Arisu, am I really me? Because I'm not sure I am. I mean, think about it. How can anyone prove whether the person you're talking to right now is really me? Maybe the real me is the one who wasn't me at all.
I'll always be on your side. And I'll always believe in you, even when you don't believe in yourself. Because I love you.
Arisu, I'm sorry. I can't tell if you're actually talking to me or not. I can't even be sure that you love me.
Arisu, I'll never forget the pain I saw in your eyes. I think that was Alice this time.
Miss Arisu?
Okay, one bed again. Huh?
Are you all right? You were staring into space.
Oh, yeah, I'm fine. Sorry. I let out a sigh. Once again, I had been caught zoning out like a total space case. I was definitely awake, yet I kept having these strangely vivid, lifelike experiences. It was kind of like narcolepsy, except it felt all fuzzy and surreal. Almost like a dream.
So, what was it you wanted to ask me?
The hunter furrowed his brow at me. Evidently he saw me as one of his patients. Well, you see, I'm Ryoshi Arisu's younger sister.
Ah, yes, him.
At the mention of my brother, the tension faded from the air.
Would you like me to call him over so you can speak to him?
Oh, no, that won't be necessary. Do you know 4 brothers named Cinderella, Snow White, Red Riding Hood, and Kaguya? At this, the color drained from his face.
Yes, they came here in the past. What of it?
Could you tell me why? This is a mental health facility, right? What business did they have here?
They were my patients, obviously.
What? Just when I was finally feeling calm, my heart started to race all over again. They were his patients? Of course they were. I should have known. Thought that was blinkin' obvious.
I first heard of them when I was contacted by his orphanage. He had a history of running away from the facility, and every time they brought him back, he acted as though he had no memory of it. Naturally, it isn't unheard of for children to lie. Classic attention-seeking behavior. But his circumstances were a little different. Most notably, it was in the way he spoke. One minute he'd have a British accent, and the next he'd act like a little prince, or clam up entirely. That wasn't all. His skills, habits, preferences, knowledge, it all fluctuated and abnormally fast.
I feel like we're breaking some doctor-patient confidentiality here, but please continue.
Each time it happened, he gave off entirely different vibes, like he was a whole new person. When I heard that, I knew in my heart that he probably had brothers. So I had them bring him here, and we spoke. He didn't seem to know about his brothers at all. But I saw them with my own 2 eyes. I personally met Cinderella, Red Riding Hood, and Kaguya. At first, I thought there were 4 in total, but later I would learn about the existence of a 5th. Snow White, I mean. He was a bit of a special case. Your brother was the one who clued me in about him. Evidently, he met Snow White purely by chance. As I got to know them, I realized that none of them knew about each other. So I suggested that they all get together and talk it out. I wanted them to come to terms with the situation and come up with a plan for the rest of their lives. That being said, though they were brothers, they weren't guaranteed to get along. I wasn't sure it would work out. But fortunately, the worst-case scenario never came to pass, and they all reached an agreement. Then, after a long talk, they decided to stay with me. I want to believe I did everything I could for them. He's so young. He's got the rest of his life ahead of him. At his age, he ought to have all kinds of hopes and dreams. But he doesn't. Because of his brothers, he lives a hard life. At the rate he was going, he was on the verge of a breakdown, and I wanted to avoid that at all costs. Through our conversations, we built a foundation of trust. I wanted them to achieve physical, emotional, and societal stability. I probably cared more passionately for them than any of my other patients. As I spoke to them, I got the distinct sense that they were all flawed individuals. They each had their own separate memories and their own deep trauma. So I attempted to heal them, one by one. Unfortunately, this proved fruitless, and their hearts remained closed off. I was starting to lose my patience. Their symptoms didn't worsen, but nor did they improve. I would have liked at least one of the brothers to take charge, but none of them could. Cinderella was the most ideal candidate, as the oldest brother, but he had his own problems. The next best candidate was Snow White, but he was asleep. It was then that I decided to create another brother. One with no flaws, but all the knowledge and memories of the other brothers. One that could endure the pain. So, I put him under hypnosis and spoke to his subconscious mind. And that was how I successfully created the sixth brother.
That is horrible. That just sounds absolute. I don't know if I'm crazy, but I'm like, you did what now? You created another personality in this person who is already having trouble, and now you've added a sixth person who now has a different kind of trauma altogether because of you. Gosh, how are you still practicing? Oh gosh, can we report him to somebody, please?
But what I created was defective.
Defective?
Yes. The sixth brother was an empty shell. No emotions. Completely numb.
Can I ask one last question?
What is it?
Why did you distance yourself from them? The hunter looked down at the medical documents and sighed.
Because I was tired. Much as I hate to admit it, talking to my patients had become a chore. In this line of work, outbursts and suicide attempts are common. Some are kept in isolation, but nevertheless, we're still required to interact with them. When I was younger, I gave it everything I could, but I'm not that young anymore. I tried my best, but I couldn't fully heal them. And eventually, I started blaming myself for their lack of progress. Silly, isn't it? It's my job to help people, yet there I was, wishing someone would help me.
I'd like to help you to the door, is what I'd like to do. My poor wizard boy! I mean, if it wasn't for this doctor, the wizard wouldn't exist, but... Gosh. By the time we left, it was already dark outside. The sixth brother he mentioned. He wasn't talking about Gretel, was he? I mean, it doesn't make sense chronologically. Gretel didn't meet the other brothers until after he arrived at my house. I glanced at the wizard beside me as I spoke.
Yeah.
So, since you're related, would you like to join the harem of brother fiancés? As usual, he commented in an absent voice that suggested he didn't really care. The full moon was nearly upon us, yet he didn't seem worried in the least. Thinking back, he never seemed to show any interest in me right from the start. Maybe he only saw me as a worthless pawn. You know, it's funny. I never knew they had any other brothers. So I guess there's 7 in total? I wonder what happened to the other 2.
Beats me.
You're just going to keep being evasive, aren't you? I stopped short and watched him walk off ahead of me. As a pawn, I could only move forward. But being a pawn had its advantages, too. And funnily enough, it sounds like the sixth brother was evading the hunter, too. The wizard stopped and turned back to look at me. He smiled like he was hiding something. His amber eyes reflected the abyss within. Mr. Wizard, why do you love her?
Another question about her.
Yep, another question. Call me annoying if you like, but it's bugging me. I want to know more about this woman who captivated an oddball like you. So, explain yourself. Tell me why you love her so much." He must have sensed the determination in my eyes, because he let out a breath and his defiant smirk softened.
"She gave me a role. She was the only one who needed me. I was going to disappear, and then she saved me. That's all there is to it. I don't care if she was just manipulating me to make use of my skills, or she had some other objective. If she achieves her ends and finds she doesn't need me anymore, then so be it. I don't care if she kills me. I would die for her. That is the love I have for her."
Love is blind, I suppose. I envy the way she managed to get you to commit your whole life to her. The Japanese word chusei came to mind. He had pledged his love to her, and now he was completely dedicated to her cause. Do you miss her?
Yes. Of course I miss her. But I can't be with her.
Why not? She's not dead, is she?
There's a wedge between us.
What sort of wedge?
One of my romantic rivals.
At first he sounded like he was joking, but I could hear hostility behind those words. Then his expression shifted.
More importantly, tomorrow's the big day.
Just like that, he went back to normal. Right. If I don't choose my future husband by tomorrow, I'm going to die.
Are you prepared?
Silently, I started walking again.
I'll take that as a no.
What about you? Have you figured out who the culprit is?
Not a clue, I'm afraid.
As I passed him, I reached into his pocket and pulled out the blackmail letter. I wonder what he was feeling when he wrote this to me.
Probably hurry up and pick someone, right?
If so, then maybe he never stood to gain anything from this blackmail at all. I'd figured whoever sent this letter must clearly want something, but he didn't want anything at all. He only did it because his beloved commanded him to.
Sounds like a sheep.
Maybe that's his most defining trait. I looked up at him. Was he really even looking at me? How do you think he'll feel if he has to kill me?
Hard to say, really.
How would you feel if it was you? Hypothetically speaking, of course. He paused for a moment.
Pity. Or something like that, I figure. Not that I want to put myself in the shoes of a criminal.
That's a relief.
Is it?
Yeah. You see, I'm planning to find my answer by tomorrow night.
Right. You still have time. Just think it over.
I will. You're gonna have to kill me again, sir. From there, we went back to my house, and I spent my final hours lost in thought. Great. This is crazy.
I've been dreaming of you. One day, she begged me to tell her how the other personalities came to be and what lives they'd been living. She listened quietly as I told her. Every now and then she furrowed her brow, but she never got weepy or angry. This surprised me. I knew she liked them, so I figured she would take pity on them and start crying or something. When I finished the story, she let out a breath.
Wow, that's wild. Thanks for sharing. I'd heard bits and pieces, but that was my first time hearing the story in full detail. Thanks to you, I have a slightly better understanding of them now.
All I did was answer your question, that's all. I continued to hide behind my mask. It was comfortable back here, and I had started thinking maybe it'd be fun to make it permanent.
Yeah, I know. But I appreciate you responding to me.
Her stony expression finally softened. but then it hardened again as she peered into my eyes.
Isn't it hard for you?
Why would it be?
Well, you have all their memories, don't you?
I mean, yeah.
You carry all the painful memories the others couldn't bear, yet you act like it's no big deal.
Well, what choice do I have? I was told to do this. I was built to be resistant to the pain, to be numb. And because of that, I never once pitied any of them. That said, perhaps that was only natural, since I was originally meant to kill them if necessary.
By whom?
The quack who created me. He's clearly different from the other personalities. He remembers almost everything. He's got all of their knowledge and none of their flaws. He's the closest match to the original. So yeah. I looked at her and found myself lost for words. Tears streamed down her face and fell to the floor. Why are you crying? I was so startled I forgot to impersonate anyone.
Because I feel so bad for you.
I had never felt pain, but evidently she could feel mine.
Or did she just want you to think that?
From there, I continued to wait until the other personalities were asleep, then slip out of the looking-glass world to visit her. At first, she and I rivaled each other at chess, but before long, I started to beat her more and more often. She was a sore loser, so every time it happened, she would demand a rematch, and that was what kept her coming back. Then one day, I noticed she was feeling down. All through our chess match, there was no trace of her usual energy. It was like her mind was somewhere else.
How's he been lately?
She murmured as she moved her white pawn. Which one?
Well,
she faltered. I knew exactly what had happened to her. After all, I could access everyone's memories. But I felt this strange discomfort in my chest, so I asked her anyway. Arisu.
Oh.
I walked up in front of her, grabbed her by the shoulders, and pushed her down onto the floor. Then I pressed my lips to hers.
Okay, well that escalated like 1,000% all of a sudden. Hello?
I forced my tongue into her mouth. I ravaged her, and she didn't stop me. After a long, long kiss, she looked at me calmly. That's strange. You don't seem any happier.
What, you were trying to cheer me up?
Of course. Gretel. I know all about it, you know. After all, I've got everybody's memories. Cinderella. I am them, as they are me, and you told me you loved me. Red Riding Hood. You're amazing, Arisu. You've befriended all of them by putting on the mask they each want you to wear. Snow White. Naturally, I figured I'd try it myself, so I put on a mask to be whatever you fancied. Kaguya. Who do you want? Cinderella or Snow White? I switched through all of them in turn, until finally... Or perhaps... Alice. Just say the word, and I can promote myself to any piece on the board.
Stop!
For the first time, she rejected me. Were my impressions really that bad? I'm a failure! Defective! It's just like he said, I have no defining identity, even though he made me this way on purpose. But it's no use. Try as I might, you always see right through my act. I guess I really am a failure.
You don't understand at all, do you?
She gave me a pitying look. I looked at her dubiously as I waited for her to continue.
No matter what mask I wear, I'm still me. Is it really that strange to put an effort to get someone you like to like you back?
I'm not sure.
Then think about it.
At her command, I nodded on reflex. That is like scary. When she does that, I would be like, "Hup, yes ma'am." Okay then, I'll think about it. With that, I started to move off of her, but her eyes, her lips, wouldn't let me go. Well, shall we continue? Personally, I'm fine either way. I smiled faintly. I was acting confident, but it was really just a bluff. After all, if this was a game, then I wanted to win. She stared at me, unblinking. Then, after a long moment, her glistening lips slowly moved.
If you don't have anything, then you can have me. But in return, I want you. You are my property. You're going to make all my desires and demands a reality.
Who died and made you queen?
Touché. You can turn me down if you like.
No, I won't. I'm at your disposal, Your Majesty. A sweet, intoxicating warmth spread deep in my chest, numbing my senses. I leaned in and kissed her again. Dang, this is getting pretty heady, guys. I gotta admit, I'm like, my head's spinning from this. And so I stopped wearing a mask around her. I had only impersonated the others to mess with her. Now that she knew my true identity, I realized, belatedly, that there was no point in maintaining the facade. As usual, when I next appeared before her, we played chess.
You know that pitch-black world you guys live in? You think maybe it's sort of like a dream?
She murmured quietly as she looked at the chessboard. Once again, I was slowly closing in on her white king.
I read that in most cases, the people and places that appear in your dreams are taken wholesale from your past. In response to internal and external stimuli and the emotional response caused thereof, memories are replayed from mental storage, and our brains invent a narrative to go along with it. Maybe this way I can finally make a difference.
What do you mean?
Well, maybe I can save my prince.
Her prince, she said. And she didn't mean me.
Hey.
She looked up and locked eyes with me. Then out of nowhere, her face filled my vision. I could feel her damp breath against my lips. Her crystalline eyes reflected someone who wasn't me. They were so beautiful. They fanned the flames of my lust until I was desperate to steal her for myself.
And that's how she cheated. Checkmate! I win!
She pulled away from me with a smirk. She had spun the board around. Now she was black and I was white. You cheated. As I stared in shock, she shot me a wink.
I'll do anything it takes to win. Hey, you got an outfit now.
This ominous music. Then, a few days later, I suddenly found myself unable to travel to the other side of the mirror. It's no use. He won't wake up. What a hopeless little king. Or prince, I suppose. None of the other characters noticed. Like the prince, they were all asleep. They were all so delicate and fragile and traumatized. All alone in a world of darkness. This was where they were born, where they jumped down through the looking glass.
Now tell me, what's your name? What's your name? Answer me, Alistair.
Alistair? That's what Alice has been short for this entire time? Brrr, what? Why did that not occur to me ever? Alistair! Oh, I love it. Great, good, excellent.
It's no use. The project is a failure. I was trying to create a unified personality to serve as a near replacement for the original. He's clearly different from the other personalities. He remembers almost everything. He's got all of their knowledge and none of their flaws. He's the closest match to the original. So why isn't it working, stupid failure?
Don't you think that's a little harsh?
Oh, he can't hear me anyway. He has no emotions. He's completely numb. This concludes today's treatment.
But
I have many other patients who need my help. I can't afford to spend all my time dealing with him.
what's your plan for him going forward?
Which one do you mean? The real him or the empty husk lying here?
Both.
The problem will solve itself. As he grows weaker, he'll stop showing himself, and then he'll be absorbed into one of the other personalities. As for the boy himself, hate to say it, but I think it's best we give up on unifying his personalities. The burden on him would be too large. I've done all I can, but he's just not suited for the role.
But I'm not Alistair! I thought I was just a pawn. Flawless and invincible. As one who could shoulder all their pain without batting a lash, I alone was fit for the king's throne. And besides, if this world was a dream, and I knew it to be so, then I had total command of the playing field. Just like a queen. In that case, all I'd need to do is hunt down the king and checkmate him. As I contemplated this, I heard a familiar voice in the darkness.
Can you hear me?
It's her.
Can you hear my voice?
Yes, don't worry. I hear you loud and clear.
Why?
Her voice was trembling. I thought back to her tears. The tears only I knew. What about you? Why are you crying?
Please, wake up! Alistair!
After I was trapped in the looking-glass world, I realized. As the all-powerful wizard, I was a pawn who could never become a king. Once again, I could hear her voice through the cloudy mirror.
Can you hear me? Can you hear my voice?
Yes, I hear you.
I have a favor to ask. Something only you can do. Mr. Wizard?
That was when she called my name for the first time.
Let's pretend we're kings and queens.
Well, interesting.
I love this picture. It gives me very strong Sailor Moon vibes, actually. Let's play pretend. I'll be the Ohime-sama. And you'll be the Mahotsky.
Not king and queen.
I've already picked a setting, too. It's set in the Looking Glass world where everything is topsy-turvy.
Yeah, she's already picked her king.
Amid a colorful cast of gender-flipped fairy tale characters, I'll take on the role of the heroine and join them in their twisted tales. How will the story end? It's up to me. Since there's no script, even I don't know what will happen. But I know what I want the ending to look like, and that's all that matters. You see, I really love happy endings. But you knew that, didn't you?
News to me.
You see, the wizard has a very important role. Sometimes an ally, sometimes an enemy. The bearer of great and mysterious power.
So in other words, you want to use me like a pawn?
You'll be the little pawn who keeps the story moving. And when I mess up, I want you to kill me. The story can only have one heroine. Otherwise, it'll veer off track.
So you'd have me undo the mistakes?
Piece of cake for a guy like you, right?
As you wish.
Which was to say, I love you, Princess Bride style.
After all, you're my strongest piece.
But of course, I am your wizard. If you so desire, your majesty, I shall become whatever piece you need. Queen, rook, bishop, or knight.
I would do anything if it meant she needed me. She was the white pawn, always moving forward. Sometimes I would clear her path, and at other times I would block it. That was my duty, but also my aspiration.
Now then, let the story begin.